Okay, we will get started now. So welcome everyone to our Industry Leaders panel on the topic of the new landscape for student recruitment in 2022. This panel is being hosted by Edvisor, and we're delighted also to have a sponsor here, who is the company Londonist. And we've got Umang here from Londonist, who's going to give us a quick bit of information about them as a company and what they do. So Umang, can you maybe tell us who Londonist is and what is it that you do?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Ben, for the introduction. As Ben said, my name's Umang, I'm from Londonist, and hello to you all, firstly. So Londonist is an award-winning student accommodation agency located in central London. And since 2013, we've been providing both clients and students globally with both short-term and long-term accommodation from 2 weeks up to 51 weeks. So Londonist currently now has over 45 locations across London. And we also have Dublin as well, with both stylish ensuite rooms and studio rooms. We also offer extra services such as insurance, kitchen packs, bathroom packs, and also airport transfers for our students. Our headquarters is in London, where I'm based today, and we've also got an office in Istanbul, Turkey, and another office in Shanghai, China.
Fantastic. And of course, Londonist will soon be available to agencies through Edvisor Accommodation, which is going to be launching shortly. What benefits do you think that will bring to Edvisor agencies, Umang?
Yeah, definitely. I think the benefit for the Edvisor agencies will be a special tailored price for all the Edvisor agencies. So the agency rates that the Edvisor agents have would be completely tailored and specialized. A completely improved rate to all the other kind of providers and partners that we have. Also, I believe the fact that we've got a wide range of both luxury and budget options across London is a big benefit, right? Because obviously there's students that are looking for their top end student accommodation, but also the more budget end of accommodation. And then especially within different markets such as LATAM, South America, a lot of students are coming for short-term courses. So we provide that flexibility. And Ben, throughout and the rest on the call, I mean, throughout the pandemic, we found that there's a lot of variables, right, such as visa delays or students wanting to change their dates. So I think the key factor for Edvisor agents is that we're flexible and we are extremely, we listen to our agents basically. Also, the fact that we've got an international team, so we've got a global team that speaks a wide range of languages such as Portuguese, Spanish, Mandarin. I think this is also a big benefit as well. Lastly, I think the other attraction is that we have a student portal. So basically the Edvisor agents, the students can benefit from our portal. So portals such as extra services, they can book tickets in London, such as London Eye, all directly through the Londonist portal. Wonderful.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much for that that sort of overview, Umang. I'm sure agents will be delighted to be connecting with you guys through the system soon. And of course, carrying on from that, we now have obviously a fantastic group of international panelists joining us as well. I'm delighted to be joined by Stefan Rossinis, who's the Managing Director of Bayswater Education, Nelia Chamas, who's the CEO of Just ETC Group in Brazil. We have John Chu, who's the Head of Insights and Analytics from Navitas. We have Chema Pascual, who's the CEO of In Situ in Spain. And we have Ashlehan Ozench, who's the founder of ASBA Education Consulting in Turkey. And hopefully I've done a good job of pronunciation there. Ashlehan and I had a bit of a crash course in Turkish yesterday. Now, we are going to be obviously raising a couple of different topics today for discussion. The idea is, of course, that it's an interactive event. So if you have comments or want to add something in, please do, add questions to the Q&A or indeed in the chat box as well. We will try and get to them where we can. We do have 3 topics to try and cover, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. And the first topic that we're going to cover is looking at a bit of a 2021 wrap-up. So to look at kind of what have been the main takeaways for 2021 from our panelists and what lessons have been learned from the past year. I'm particularly interested to see if anyone's got any new habits or any new strategies that they had to implement in the past year that they're going to be carrying on with in the future. I'm going to hand over to Stefan maybe to start off this discussion, but obviously everyone, please do give us your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I remember at the beginning of January 21, it was going to be our recovery year, And we had all the hope on January the 1st of a really exciting year. We'd spent 2020 doing a number of number of acquisitions for Bayswater. So we had acquired a summer school business, and we'd acquired Eurocenters in December 2020. And we were like, wow, this is great. Next year is going to be fantastic. And by the 4th of January, I think we'd closed all our schools and we were in another lockdown in the UK. So all the best plans you can make can get thrown out of the window very, very quickly. And I've started this year after another acquisition of the schools of 2 schools of Stafford House in Canada and 1 in Brighton. So we're now at 10 schools from 1 school at the beginning of the pandemic. At the beginning of the year, being really excited, but with a little bit of fear of what might come. And I suppose everybody in the industry is in that sense. It's like, let's have a recovery. But we know that the pandemic can throw us curveballs all the way along. And we also have been in this industry, many of us, for a long time. And there's always other things that can come along, politics, volcanoes in the middle of oceans, or whatever it may be, that are part and parcel of our industry. But 2021 was one of hope and stop and start, I would say. We would open, we would close, we would open, we would close. And we're just hoping that 2022 won't be like that at all.
Maybe just to pick up on that, Stefan, it was probably a similar outlook for us at the start of 2021. I think the big question around the pandemic has been, is this going to be a 3 to 5 year recovery, or was it going to snap back within, let's say, 12 to 18 months? Navitas operates more in the higher education space, and I have to say, in higher education, the bounce back has been very strong. So for some, it's been a year of hopes deferred. For us, it's been certainly a year of hopes fulfilled, especially in the UK and Canada, where students could more or less start to travel and to arrive into the country in time for the big start of the university academic year, which starts around September, October. When we look at the visa data, it shows a similar story. The bounce back has been incredible. For the UK and Canada, both of them are now above where they were pre-COVID in terms of new students starting in the higher education sector. Wow. So it's been a real surprise and a real encouragement. We were hoping that would be the case, and it wouldn't take us 3 or 5 years to recover, and that's certainly been the case.
And on the agency side of things, have you guys been seeing a similar sort of pattern?
Or maybe I'll take up on this, and I certainly agree with the fact that we all thought the 2020 was a really difficult year, and then we would be coming out of it by 2021. But it has been a more actually difficult year for Turkey, especially because of the economic crisis, topped up with political crisis, refugee crisis. And I think in Turkey, we experienced one of the most difficult years as far as dollar tripling in the currency exchange rate compared to Turkish lira. So we learned a great deal. It has been a learning year for us here in Turkey. We learned to adapt. We learned to change quickly. We learned to be flexible, as it was mentioned, and we learned to communicate. Communicate so hard that we would learn from each other what was needed immediately and what point, so that we would recover. But one important thing to say about Turkey, we have a very resilient and strong market that it has survived and has an increasing potential still. But we've learned numerous things that we will probably share today, that we still are looking forward to 2022 to become a third recovery year that will actually show the end of the tunnel for us.
To me, oh, sorry, go ahead.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, join this panel with agency and educator experts. And about Brazil, what we see, that was a very, very challenging year because of course, because we had to 2020 with big challenge, and we were like tired for that. But what we saw that was that we had to see more internal with our companies, our market. We were together with the team, and we learned about to review the process as well, you know, to put the things in the better way to flow. And the rates in Brazil was much similar with Turkey. We had exploded the rates, so there was a negative point for us. And this year will be election in Brazil, so we have a challenging year. But in one side, in another side, the people want to travel, to go abroad, you know, to leave Brazil for a while, especially because of the politicians that they are in the front of the election. So we are here to think about the options and the thoughts to be stronger for this year, because you have good opportunity for sure.
In 2020 and 2021, the pandemic had a significant impact in our industry. And I know that all of us had to take very tough decisions to survive. When it all started, I was CEO of Munich, which was one of the leading agencies in Spain, which I founded 24 years ago. And as most of you, we had to restructure our team, and that was very hard to do. But, you know, we survived. However, at the same time, it gave me the chance to reflect about our industry and its future. And as a result of this reflection is why I decided to launch In Situ. In Situ is a one-stop shop where all the players in the industry can recruit students from all over the world. And if you ask me what's In Situ, I would say In Situ is a kind of Expedia or Booking.com of our industry, where schools and agencies can sell their programs all over the world, and it is free for schools and for agencies to use. So to me, it was difficult, but at the same time, it gave me the opportunity to start a new business, which I think, you know, it's a great opportunity for all of us.
Interesting. So I think from what I'm taking from what you're saying as well, it's interesting because a lot of the issues that I think have affected over the past year, things like exchange rates, political issues, you know, elections and things in different countries as well, they're to me sometimes things that have, dare I say, always been issues as well, though, because the pre-pandemic we often dealt with. I know certainly I've got quite a lot of experience of working with the Brazilian market. The dollar exchange rate was always up and down quite regularly as well, and volatile as well. Do you think there's anything sort of pandemic specific that's maybe you've learned from the past year that you would do differently, or that maybe that there might be a change coming forward for everyone, both from a school's perspective and an agency's perspective?
For Brazilian market,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
For Brazilian market, what we saw after the COVID was the importance of the agents through the process. You know, they felt more confident and ready, you know, to change the things and to plan again. So we saw the pandemic in Brazilian markets, the power of the agents through the process.
Okay, interesting. Yes. Yeah, please.
Also, Ben, in Turkey, similar to Brazil, with all the difficulties, we saw the power of agencies. We saw the power of communicating through our associations. So there was a very strong line of communication created through the internet, and a speedy communication with the industry and within us facilitated a lot of quick turnovers on recruitment. So immediate connections with the consulates, and thanks to that kind of communication, we were able to recover from some of the difficult positions. And we did create also a strong link with institutions creating new programs and diversified. So we learned not to put all our eggs in one basket, first of all, like concentrated agencies started to diversify and do other things, incoming, outgoing, and creating only summer school agencies suffered the most from the process or from the pandemic. So they started working with other agencies locally and internationally, recruiting different types of students on their behalf. So there was a lot of things learned cooperation-wise.
Interesting. And I mean, as educators then, Stefan and John, are you finding that you're getting maybe some new agencies and agencies that haven't maybe, particularly for Navitas, maybe operated in the higher ed space previously, or indeed requests? Imagine, Stefan, with now having 10 schools, you'll get requests for all sorts of different programs to be provided around the world as well. Are you seeing that kind of being reflected in your guys' operations, that you're getting new agents or a lot of requests for diversification of what you provide?
I think many of our agents that we've spoken to have survived the pandemic by pivoting much more to the higher education sector than they had ever done before. And that sticks. I think they've learned how to sell those programs. They've seen that they can be valuable to them. So that, I hope, in the long run will make agencies even more viable and profitable. They've diversified, and when the language market does come back and other parts of the market, then yeah, they'll have even more business than they had before. From our point of view, we believe that the language industry over time, especially English language, people will get better and better at learning English. And we have to really think about where our market develops and how it develops. There's obviously a very established higher education market. There's plenty of offerings out there. But we believe that if we can offer relevant courses in a short or medium term format, so I call it kind of offering university style short courses with language school service, where you can organize the accommodation, the transfers, the social program and all that kind of stuff. That's the area we really want to get into. So it's kind of the post language sector. Obviously communication skills, highly important, but young people want to go abroad and have their experiences. And at the moment, you either, it shouldn't just be language and higher education. There's plenty of things in the middle that are possible there. And not, obviously in Canada, we're in Canada, we understand that market does have a large interest in immigration and living in the country post their studies. But I still think loads of people want to come to London and study digital marketing for a month. And that kind of thing maybe hasn't been offered to them in the past. So I definitely think products are going to diversify in terms of what people are offering. But the agencies have learned to do things in different ways and sell different products and higher value products as well.
I totally agree with all that's been said. I think we have seen a bit of a pivot, many, not just in the product sort of domain as Stefan's outlined, but also in terms of the countries and the institutions that these agencies serve. So, we've got the advantage of being in 10 countries around the world. And what we've seen is some of our agencies particularly were Australia specialists for many decades. And the pandemic, particularly if you're trying to sell a non-existent Australian product, has forced them to pivot to say, okay, what can we do with your UK institutions or your Canadian institutions? Or, we've got a college campus that we run on behalf of a university in Singapore. And that's done quite well in the midst of COVID. So I agree that agility has been something that we've sort of learned to flow with in the midst of the pandemic, and that importance of diversity as well has been really coming through very strongly. Maybe the last point I'll add is around just the importance of relationships in this industry. I think sometimes international education can become quite transactional. I think what COVID's shown that it is built on a bedrock of long-standing relationships. It is quite a small industry, even though it's a global industry. And those relationships matter. They kept us going when the times were really tough. So I think it's a great reminder of just how important those interconnections are between providers and agencies, and of course the students and their families as well.
I also agree that we need to diversify, but I also learned something else. I learned that by going digital, we can reach students from all over the world. We're living in a world which is more and more digital, right? And this is a good thing, right? And we can reach students from all over the world if we go digital. But having said this, going digital implies the design of a complex, strategy which can be difficult and expensive to implement. I know that as a fact because we spend a lot of time, a lot of money and resources to launch in situ. But it was hard, but we finally succeeded, And so we see a great opportunity with online bookings, and now we do believe we are an amazing an amazing opportunity for schools to sell their products all over the world, especially in those countries where they don't have any partner agencies and they would like to sell their products. And also for agencies, because I think we're a great opportunity for agencies to go global at no cost, because we offer them the chance to sell everywhere. So to me, we need to diversify. That is great. And higher education is a must today, but also going digital.
Yeah, I think those last 2 points actually really sort of segue nicely into our next topic, which is new rules of the game. And I suppose the question of, are there any new rules in the game? How does anyone feel like, how does people feel that the pandemic has impacted how agencies and schools work together, and also how you recruit? Are you doing anything differently from an agency perspective in terms of to reach the students and to get hold of the students? As schools, are you doing anything differently in your approach with agencies? Whether it be digital or obviously that relationship based is still so key to all that you do within the industry as well. So I'd be interested to hear from you guys in terms of 2022 and moving forward. How do you think it's going to impact the work you do with your partners? And then also kind of maybe more specifically for some of the agencies on the call, how is it going to impact how you reach the end student as well? Maybe I'll pass to Ashlehan to start us off on this topic. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Just to start off, I would like to say that with all that is said, the whole environment of education in the future is going to slightly change. It's going to either shift to merging at some point, where we notice that the last year of the high school is merging with the first year of college. Some of the education will be transferred to online, but we realized in Turkey that, I think this goes globally, many students and parents prefer the experience that is going to be offered on campus for undergraduate studies. So the graduate level of study will shift to online mostly, I would say, for the future. So there's going to be a major change, and we need to adapt to being awful to provide that kind of service. So we see a change in agency-institution relations in that sense as well. A lot of programs are being formed where agencies are able to offer certain opportunities online for students in Turkey, for example, which helps to reduce the cost of education, facilitating the potential to afford more expensive on-site education in the future. So we're going to see also another shift will be country-wise. So just like we spoke, some of the agencies learned to sell higher education. So they learned to adapt to that environment, but they were selling language courses or certificate programs that were slightly cheaper. So they learned to offer Europe instead of more expensive options. So we see more students going to Netherlands from Turkey, for example, to Europe. So these trends are going to be a little more difficult to break and bring those students back to US or Canada in the future. This is another angle that we need to look at things. Like, we need to really follow through and see how that change currently will influence the future of international student recruitment, either in Turkey or Brazil. I mean, the currency exchange, what the agencies are learning, what they're offering is going to shape the future of international study from now on. So I am thinking we are currently learning and teaching each other what we believe will work in the future. What I personally think will take over from now on is the ability to provide each student and institution what they exactly need, whether it be an expensive certificate program or which will teach them the potential to be recruited or work. A lot of students, adults in Turkey, are taking up courses online to further their potential to take up another opportunity in business, or students are taking up opportunities to take courses in high school to reduce their expenses in the future for education abroad. So a lot of different potentials are here, and we're learning constantly to be able to select what's appropriate and communicate with local students to provide them the best options available.
And I suppose that calls back to what Stefan was mentioning earlier about people doing, for example, digital marketing courses in London, because they'll already have done some of that background work and certainly their English language level.
Just shortly add one little point to that, exactly to that point. I see the future of education also connecting with industry a lot at that point. So industry will move on to higher education, partnering with institutions to provide that kind of cooperation, so that, because employability will be the key drawing point for institutions to attract students and recruit, for us as well. We need to provide information to what's coming up next.
Yeah, in Brazil, we also see this, the course for certificate and diploma exactly to work since the beginning. And the other point that I see is the importance to have the technology behind the human support and the human people. We need data, we need infos, we need statistics, you know, because we need to listen even more our students from now, because we had the pandemic. You have to stop, you know, and do what we could do, because sometimes the student wants, for example, to live in Australia, but the country wasn't open for this, so they have to change, you know. They didn't have options to choose, they had a few options to choose. So from now, the things going to the new normal, we have to listen to the students, you know, listen to the parents to better understand what's the way. But as in Turkey and Brazil, the economy is not so strong. So in the first beginning, we see the certificate, diplomas, in the opportunity to students to work overseas and not just to study. So we see in Brazil in this way.
When we started in CEDU, we were focusing on language courses, and but as you all have said, there is a trend, you know, towards you know, academic education, you know, vocational programs, higher education, postgraduate education, because that allows you to join the find a job, right? And that the level of English or in languages in general is growing, you know. So there's a change. I don't think this is a trend. I think this is a change, right? And we didn't see it at the beginning when we launched it in CEDU, which was focused on language programs. And we eventually realized of this, you know, trend, and we decided to include vocational programs and higher education. And this is a new functionality we're gonna launch in a few weeks. Someone mentioned in online education, online training. I don't think there's going to be a competition between online training and, you know, easy to train, you know, on the ground training, because if you travel to another country, this is a different experience for you. So I think that a lot of students are going to choose online training as a previous, you know, step, and they will move forward and travel to a country to have that experience, because you know, learning marketing in New York, I mean, or studying, you know, graphic design in Spain. This is a different experience, you know, and I think this is the trend, not a trend, you know, it's a change.
Yeah, it's a lasting change that's going to come into education. And from an educator's perspective, then, obviously from the more English language and more higher ed perspective, gents, do you find that you see these lasting changes as well? Do you see this move towards sort of online digital courses as a gateway to the in-person courses?
I mean, our whole business has been established, Bayswater Education, to kind of think about where our industry goes next. And we very much are passionate about education experiences, absolutely. But how we deliver our courses is also something that we think about. So, for example, just giving an example, a digital marketing course, we give people the course content before they arrive. They can look at it, they can go through it. They can prepare themselves for the course, you know, 3 months beforehand with all the content available. But when they come to London, we take them to visit companies in digital marketing companies. We get them to do a group project together. We get them to do presentations in front of people. And that gives them such an amazing experience. It gives them their international network, but they only had to go for a month rather than try and learn something online for 6 months and give up after 3 because they got busy with life, which is what tends to happen with online programs. So I think finding that nice blend of kind of realizing what you've learned on the online stuff, but actually going somewhere and making sure that you've practiced it, had your international experience, and put London on your CV, as I like to say, or New York or Paris.
Right.
I think they're the really exciting things. So I do think those trends are there to say. And any research that you look at Generation Z, they will pay more money. They want experiences. I think I read a survey somewhere, only 13% were interested in purely online learning. If you looked at millennials, more would be interested in online learning because they probably had their fun. But Gen Z, those people who've been to university, who started university in September 19, they've spent a good 70% of their courses online. They haven't been out partying, meeting anybody, doing anything. So I can imagine the graduates of 2020, I don't know, I'm going to get my maths right, 2022 or 3, they're like, I need a life experience. Let me out. So we've got a great opportunity to provide these experiences for people around the world. And they've just been desperate at home with their whole university experience, even if they've gone abroad. I mean, I've got friends who went to the UK to study who've been stuck at, online in lectures for 2 years. So they're even more desperate to have those international experiences, to have their lives. And I think our market is like perfectly set up to kind of cater for that pent up demand.
I might come at the question from a slightly different angle. I think if you get a chance to look up any charts on the trend in online shopping, for example, so online shopping obviously went through the roof, just exploded during the pandemic. But what's happened since is it's pretty much come back down to where it was as the economies have reopened. So on the one hand, yes, I think there've been lots of changes that have been accelerated by COVID. But I also think there are lots of things that will go back to what they were at quite a similar level. And I think online learning is one of them. I think that students have been pushed into online learning by necessity because countries are closed, because campuses are closed. They will want to go back to that face-to-face experience if you're an international student. If you're a mature age parent who needs the flexibility, that's a different category, a different segment for which online learning will work. But the whole point, I think, to what Stefan and others have been saying is you travel abroad to be transformed. I mean, it's not about just getting the piece of paper that says I completed this course. You're looking for all of the experiences that come along with that. I think the other trend that we'll see snap back is the role of the smaller agencies and the medium-sized agencies around the world. It's been really tough for them in particular during COVID, but will they disappear? I don't think so. I think, there was definitely some risks that a lot of them would have to shut up shop, but they've pivoted, they've done other things, they've gone into hibernation. The students have always found them to be a key part of the network and very important advisors. So I think they'll bounce back as well. So I think we'll be surprised that there are some things that have forced change upon us, particularly on the provider side. We've got to be a lot more flexible, a lot more digital. But I think the return to some of those longer term, very stable trends will surprise us as well. So it's very easy to look at COVID and say that's changed everything, and it certainly has changed a lot. But when it comes to what the students want to do and their preferences, I think that's a lot harder to shake and a lot harder to break.
John,
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, John, I partially agree with you, right? When you say that online education is gonna go to the levels it was, prior to the pandemic, I agree with you. I think it will never change, it will never substitute international education because of the experience, international education can bring to the student. But there's one trend that I think is unstoppable. It was unstoppable before the before the pandemic, it's online shopping, online bookings, and the pandemic has accelerated this trend. To me, it is mandatory to be online these days. If we want to keep growing and remain competitive, we got to be online. This is, I hope I'm not wrong. This is the reason. This is the reason for me to launch in a city. I thought, okay, we need to be online because this is the way people buy and people book. So what can we do? And I said, okay, we've got to create a one-stop shop where everyone can sell online. And I don't think this is gonna stop. I think this is an unstoppable trend, and I hope so, because this is the reason for Institute to live. So
I just want to add to Pascal, and I just want to confirm what you said, and what I said should not be misinterpreted in the sense that I think the graduate level online will increase, but going back to on-campus with the experience education, I don't think that number will change. That will go back to where it was. It will recover as far as the numbers, but we learned how to learn online. A lot of people were against it. They were like, I'm working, I can't leave, I don't want to go abroad and study. But now they understand they can do it. And they are learning to learn online and stay in what they are doing and expand their knowledge in different areas. So I think graduate level and certificate level education online will add on the existing on-campus abroad international experience. Sorry to interrupt, but you were just pointing out the fact that I agree with you, and that's gonna still have to be there. Online education is going to be a part of what's there already.
It's really interesting to me. Obviously, we've held a number of these panels across the past sort of 18 months, whilst we've gone all been through varying degrees of pandemic at the time as well. And it's interesting hearing that you think things will go back a little bit more like normal, if you like, because I think this time last year, everyone kept saying everything's going to change. Everything's going to change. We have to change. The whole industry is going to change. And it's interesting to me because it seems like the overall impression I'm getting is that actually things might go a little bit more back to how it was pre-pandemic, if you like, as well, with a couple of lasting sort of legacies, if you like, rather than trends. And one thing is the digitalization. I think also the personalization of service people are expecting as well, because people now definitely want to get the course that is for them, rather than saying, okay, I'll just go and maybe join this course. And I say that as a millennial who went to university, not really thinking exactly what he wanted to do with his life long term, but thinking, oh, well, I should go to university and do a course from that point of view. So it's really interesting to me to hear that you think that will come kind of go back a little to how it was pre-pandemic. And I suppose from that point of view, that kind of brings me on to our next sort of and final topic, which is plans for 2022. By the sounds of it, I've got to say, it sounds like the people are optimistic about the future. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that and why you're optimistic about the future. I think, John, maybe you answered this question when saying that you were bouncing back very well in the higher ed sphere within 12 months. But it'd be great to hear from everyone in terms of why you're optimistic about the future, and also maybe an idea of what your expectations are for student recruitment in 2022. Obviously, I'm not going to hold anyone to specific numbers, but we see higher ed bouncing back. Are we expecting to see a similar thing with English language? Will that be a bit more of a gradual sort of return to things as well? Even high school programs from that point of view as well, obviously, are something that are quite big as well. And we are seeing, internally at Edvisor, we are seeing a high number of K-12 schools, for example, in the USA, joining the platform and coming on board as well, as demand for that market increases as well. But I'd be interested to hear from you all in terms of how optimistic are you about 2022, and kind of your perspectives on that.
I am very optimistic. Last month we had 15K visits from 171 countries, which was great for us. And but we've seen an increasing number of visits, since last November. And we expect our target for the end of the year is 120,000 visits per month. We think, I believe it's going to be a V-shaped recovery of the market. I clearly see it, because when the restrictions end and all the markets open, people want to travel. They want to travel. They've been stopped and they want to travel. So I'm very optimistic about the future. I can see a V-shaped recovery of the market. So I'm optimistic, yes.
I'm
We're
very
very-
optimistic. Sorry, John. I'm very
you go
optimistic
ahead.
in 2022 because, especially because the Omicron came to prove that the pandemic is gone, right? So we will be a disease that we can deal with. So now they will feel more and more confidence to travel. In Brazil, especially in Brazil, the numbers of increasing was going high and high every year. So the Brazilians are investing their time and their money to live abroad because of the experience, not just for the knowledge that they can have online, for example, but the experience as a man decision. So we see 2022 with a very good year because everyone can feel more confidence about to travel and to do the things. So we see a good year this year, and I hope that I'm right on this expectation.
You'll be right. You'll be right.
Yeah, as I was saying at the start, we've certainly seen higher ed in the UK and Canada, and in fact the US as well, have a very strong recovery in 2021. So very optimistic that that will continue in 2022. The big game changer for us in particular is Australia's reopening, which is well and truly started now. As of this week, the Australian government is issuing visas for free for international students. There's a fee rebate on those visa application fees. So it's a real signal to the market that reopening is underway. And I feel like I spent the last 2 years, half my job was trying to predict when borders would open and close. And I think that's well behind us as well. I think that policy lever that government has used quite extensively over the last 2 years is no longer effective. I think the consensus is we are in the endemic phase of COVID-19, and therefore border closures are not an appropriate response anymore. There'll be some very small situations where that might happen, but I think it'll be very rare that we see border closures come back into place. And that's been the number one barrier to international education. So again, another reason to be optimistic if none of those come back into play.
You're right, John. We are receiving good news from Australia, from UK, from Brazil, for example. Don't need the pre-test now to travel to UK. So this is one step less, to be worried about. Ireland as well. So we are receiving good news from the world. So it will help us a lot, to send students and to conclude the experience from our students. So,
and I think every country is waiting to welcome the international students back. So that's quite different. I mean, we've never had a period in time. Usually, the UK was quite closed off for a while, in terms of policy. Australia before that was quite closed off to international students. So for the first time in a long time, all the major English-speaking destinations have pro-international education policies, which is a fantastic place to be in.
And I'll maybe just jump in there quickly with a mention for our non-English speaking partners as well, because we obviously have schools that are in Spain, France, Germany, Italy, and these are all markets, again, that are, I think, moving in that direction as well, to have very pro sort of international student policies, because they're really looking to recruit them as well. And particularly we see certainly Germany as a market that's getting a lot of traction at the moment, as well as France, through the Edvisor platform. And I think it's a really positive thing alongside the English speaking markets as well, to see things moving in the right direction there. Sorry, I think Sam was about to say something.
No, we operate colleges in Netherlands and Germany as well, and we're very bullish on those markets.
Yeah.
And shouldn't forget the US. That's been a sleeping giant for 4 years. So
do think
I
that
just
people have
wanna
to,
add
I mean,
from
from a provider's point of view, we've all got to be a little bit understanding of each other. A lot of people have lost good staff in agencies and in schools, and we're having to rebuild the capacity and the delivery capability at a quality point that everyone's happy with. But a load of people have left the industry in the pandemic and gone off to other industries. And, you know, I'm really excited for the year ahead, but I also now have to rebuild my business from the bottom up in terms of delivery capabilities. Universities haven't really had that challenge. They've had good numbers. They might have to remember how to deal with students face to face again, but language schools have closed down, and then they've operated on skeleton staff, and we haven't seen all the borders of all the countries open up to us. We may say the UK is open, but there's many countries where people aren't keen to travel. So Asia's still closed pretty much in terms of its travelers, maybe not Japan as much. So we're getting patchy numbers of students. Middle East started first, and they're going, why are we the only students? We want international mix, you know? And you're like, oh, hang on a minute, you're the people who want to travel. Now the Brazilians are traveling, which is really good to see. The Turks aren't traveling as much because there's currency concerns, but they will come. But this means that we're building schools back up, nationality by nationality. And therefore, you're not going to have, you know, 40 nationalities, you might have 10. And so there are going to be those complaints when people arrive. And learning to deal with scale, we've all been operating kind of 50, 100 students, but when it gets to 200, 250, it's like we're going to have to relearn these skills again. So I think what I noticed during the pandemic is that when people started going back to restaurants again, they got really angry that the service was really bad, but all the waiters were really new and all the chefs were really new, and no one was willing to have any patience. They were like, right, service levels are going to be exactly as they were in restaurants as soon as they open the doors. But everyone has to it takes a while to get back to operating at a high quality level when you've got high volumes of people. And I just think there needs to be a bit of understanding across the industry from both sides. We're being chased for like, why haven't you sent us the arrivals confirmations? And then you haven't sent us the email saying they were arriving. There are mistakes on both sides of this, but I think with all the hope, we've also got to be very understanding of each other in this time, because I can see a lot of people are kind of desperate for service, but forget we're actually all rebuilding our teams.
I agree with all that, and it's very important point. And in Turkey, we're also optimistic, but not only because we're optimistic by nature, but because we've been through so many crises, and also we've recovered from so many of them, earthquakes, economic crises. But the most important thing to know about Turkey is that we came out from every crisis, economic or otherwise, with numbers increasing. So all the institutions need to know, and also maybe a good point to raise is just this week, we had groups of 80s and 90s going to UK for the term break education. So Turkish students are eager to travel abroad and get the experience. The money is a problem, but is not a concern for parents because they've been saving for their children's education. They'll not eat, but I'm sure it's the same for Brazil. Education is a priority in every family.
It's an investment.
It is investment for the future. So the dollars are piled there. If this goes on for 5-6 years, we may be talking about another environment. But as of today, with the pandemic and the numbers and the coronavirus numbers going down in Turkey, especially in the sense of hospitalization and the deaths are going down. So hopefully by the summer, the numbers in Turkey, there was a study in 2020 by a marketing company called MEC and a university that pointed out 76.2% of every Turkish teenager out of 8,000 that they interviewed wanted to go abroad for some time for education. So there's a big demand in this country, and the economy will, the students will adapt, the families will save, and they will go there. But I agree with your point. We need to adapt and be patient and be able to provide the service, and the embassies, consulates, institutions, agencies, we all need to work together. We're definitely optimistic.
Definitely. And I think that also harks back to the point made earlier about the importance of relationships and the importance of knowing your partners and getting to know your partners as well. And obviously the ability to work conducively together towards things. And obviously I'll throw in a plug here, because the best way to work B2B with your partners is, of course, through Edvisor. And everyone on this call is on Edvisor, and you're able to obviously make sure that everyone has the information they need in order to sell and to promote the courses. And of course, chase up those documents and everything, because everything can be saved within the profiles when you send your enrollment through Edvisor. So there is obviously a digital solution to this as well. I think overall as well, it's been great to hear the positive attitudes of everyone. I think this is definitely one of the most positive events that we've held in terms of people's outlook on the coming year. It's great to hear that from everyone as well. So I'm going to actually move on to some of the questions that we've been getting that have been popping in as we come through as well. The first one from my dear friend Maicon over in Brazil, and this may be directed maybe slightly more towards Nelia from this point of view, but I'd be interested from the agency's perspective here as well, is how are students feeling about booking a school where the location is potentially still closed to them? And I'm interested to hear this. So do you think, students are worried that the destination is still maybe currently close to them, but they're thinking 6 months, 8 months in the future? So they're thinking, okay, the border is going to open and I'll be able to travel then? Or do you think they're saying, okay, maybe that first destination that I thought of isn't open, but I'm now going to go somewhere that is open currently at the moment? And I'll direct that towards Nelia first.
Who can wait for example, the second semester? I think they will choose exactly the place that they want to go. But sometimes the people has no option and have to travel straight, in the next month or in a few months. So they have to go where the place can receive it. So I think it depends of the time and the potential of each student.
Interesting. And actually, there's a sort of a linked question that's come into the Q&A, and it's maybe a bit more specific on New Zealand. So sometimes we're not able to answer the specific questions quite so much, but it's interesting because they've said, do you think New Zealand will be falling behind with its protection measures? It said that it will only open on the April the 30th, but there are rumours that immigration will not process visas until August 2022. Now, obviously, with markets like Australia being quite proactive in getting students back in as well, the USA has, of course, been open since the sort of September 2020. Canada is very much proactive at reopening, Ireland as well. And of course, the non-English speaking markets like Germany, Netherlands, France and Spain and Italy and so forth. So do you think that markets that maybe are being held back slightly in their opening are going to suffer a little more?
I think so. I mean, we've seen we've seen markets that are open take, so we've seen, for example, last summer, lots of students come to our summer camp in Cyprus, where they'd never have chosen that camp or destination before. We know loads of Italians, went to Dubai for the first time for their summer camp experiences. We saw our school in Calgary in Canada, because Alberta opened up quicker, has more students today than we have in Toronto because it had stricter measures for longer. So where people have decided to stay closed for longer, people have tried new destinations, and some of that will stick. So I presume Dubai is now a bigger destination. Cyprus is definitely a bigger destination. We did more students in 9 months last year than we did in the whole of 2019. So, and they will keep on coming back, and that means the other countries that stayed closed for longer will miss out on students, I'm afraid to say.
The word of mouth in our industry is the strongest marketing tool, and they will come back and they will promote these countries. And the same thing happened with Turkey incoming. Pakistani students used to choose only to study in UK or US and further in Canada. Now we have more students from Pakistan coming to Turkey for their higher education and even for English training. The whole, as I said before, the climate is changing a little bit in the sense that they're discovering more areas. Not that, we'll have to see if that will.
I think we lost Ashlan there for a second.
I might quickly jump in on the question. I think the comment about the visas is really important as well. So it's one thing to be open, it's another thing to be welcoming and inviting. So, the whole range of policies and procedures need to line up with your marketing and whatever you say about your country. So I love the example of Canada last year when they were reopening for the fall. And they said, if you submit a visa application in May, we will get you an answer by August for you to decide to come or not in September. So I think that's an example of where, you know, not just the actions to some extent speak louder than words. And I think countries are starting to realize if we say we're open, we've got to have visa offices open. We've got to have enough people processing. We've got to, you know, keep up our service levels. And that's, I think, another great lesson, more of a focus on the student again coming out of the pandemic.
Okay, interesting. Now, another question we've had from an anonymous attendee, and Chema, you might actually be able. Obviously, you're into the digital space here as well quite a lot, and it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this as well. So they've asked, what do you think about metaverse programs? Will that change the landscape of international student mobility?
Well, what I think is that the world is going digital, right? But we still want to have real experiences. So I don't think metaverse is going to change the world. It may change the way we play with the world, you know, in our free time, but it's not going to change the world. When I think there's a digital trend, I see it as a way to purchase and to book, you know, and to expand our businesses. But metaverse is something different.
And I suppose from that point of view, as educators, do you have any concern about these digital players coming in with sort of different views and different aspects of digital education?
Not really. I mean, it's easy to sit here and go, oh, I'll never be a success. And then we'll all be kind of stuck at home with our goggles on, never leaving the house in 5 years, and I look like an idiot. But I think it's a great way for selling. So if we can do kind of versions of our schools in a metaverse where people can see where they might be able to study, great. I think for niche things where you need to study English for a specific purpose, like oil mining, you know, oil and gas or whatever, really, really great. I'd rather do that at home than go to an oil and gas field somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But I don't think it swaps our experiences, as we've said before. I think it can help kind of sell the experience, but not replace our experiences. And maybe it's going to be more of a competitor for purely online, going through slide decks and answering gap fill exercises to get your certificate. That maybe that kind of provision will move more to the metaverse, if I've understood what the metaverse is correctly.
Yeah, I think you have.
To pick up on your previous example, Stefan, I think, you know, when we start to see young people go out and party on the metaverse and fall in love on the metaverse, then I'd be worried. But until you can replicate those real life experiences, it still feels like a long way off.
Well, I read yesterday that there's going to be the first wedding on the metaverse very soon. So it's happening, John.
Or perhaps the first and the last, we don't know.
I'm from old school, so I think that the expectation and the reality, you know, from each one, I think it has more power than you know before the things, you know. So I'm asking a lot about the metaverse and the all things, digital things, and all the time, in my opinion, you know, but I don't know if I'm right, but when you talk about exchange program, you know, as many you know about what they have there, you know, can be better for experience. So it's a reflexive point that you have to think about it, because when you offer everything, you know, the expectation of the thing that they will have can be higher than the exactly, you know, they can have. So it's a difficult point to say here now, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Ashlehan, we lost you for a couple
I am
minutes
so
there.
sorry. My computer crashed, and it's a very scary thing to happen.
Right.
It went all blank, and then a note came up, and it's recovered.
I know what it's like. It's happened to me as the host in the middle of a panel before, but don't worry. Now we have reached our hour. We do have one last question, actually from Asad. Thank you very much for your question. I'm not going to address this specifically because this is obviously about an individual partner who is also on the panel today as well. However, I can say there are going to be some announcements shortly about all of the panelists, I think, and our partnerships as well. But you can find all of the panelists today on Edvisor. Please do find them through the agent discovery tool or the school discovery tool, depending on the Edvisor Recruiter Distribute platform that you're using. Please do connect. As we've highlighted today, I think the future is looking very optimistic, and that relationships are key moving forward as well. So I think that's something that we all want to take away from this, with along with all the other points raised by everyone, which seems to be a focus on personalization, a focus on digitalization, and I think that's something that we can all sort of look forward to in 2022. So finally, I would just like to give a huge thanks to Stefan, Neela, Chema, Ashlehan, and John. Thank you to everyone who's attended today as well. And we look forward to seeing you connecting on Edvisor and connecting with you ourselves soon as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening
Have a great day.
or afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.